All right. Welcome, everybody, to Conscious Effort Creative. I'm your host, Tyler Hardwick. Today, I'm going to be talking to Mr. Dan Pasowicz.
Hola.
Nice to see you, Dan. Glad you get a chance to make it here.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. We've been friends of friends for several years, and now, as fate would have it, we live a few minutes away from one another.
That seems to be the theme of my life the last 10 years or so. But yeah, through mutual connections and how the world works, it's pretty small. And shout out to my buddy Peet, my keyboardist, because he kind of got this all spearheaded. So in that weird way. But yeah.
Shout out Pete for that. Hey, let's get started right at the very top here with what you got going on currently. You play guitar for Alyssa Gallarneau.
Correct. That is very true.
Based out of Bloomington.
Yes, she was in Bloomington recently. She just graduated. She's from my neck of the woods up in the northern Illinois, Chicagoland area.
I see.
So we've actually been, together, if you will, knowing of each other for almost a decade now, it seems like. So we met a long time ago in what seems like an eternity when she was itty bitty, but she was doing her own podcasts and radio interviews, and through a mutual connection, kind of like how we've had here, I ended up joining her and her group to start creating music. And unfortunately, some things didn't work out. There was a falling out, but her and I stayed connected as well as her family. And then actually a year ago, yesterday, we went to the studio in Ohio to start recording the EP that we did. So it's kind of cool that a year later we got an EP recorded and we done some shows in between that time.
Yeah. That was one that just came out in April. Is that right?
Yes. We finished it up in March, but I think the official release was in April.
Yeah. You said that was in Ohio. Is that Sonic Lounge?
Very good.
Yeah.
He did his homework.
Yeah.
He didn't have to ask Siri about this one.
No. I believe the producer is Joe Veers. Did I pronounce that right?
Man, I'm taking you on Jeopardy now. So yeah, another big shout out here to a good buddy of mine, Joe Veers, in the Sonic Lounge studio. Got connected with Joe. Also, it seems like forever ago now. Joe has actually recorded now 3 of my band projects, Alyssa being the most latest one. But I was introduced to Joe in my touring days through my good old buddies in Bubbleflex, who are now no longer touring as Bubbleflex, but the Lonely Ones. So Uncle Marty, Brother Jimmy, you know who you guys are. So thank you for having me, go to Joe's place many a moon ago, because Joe has recorded quite a bit for me now. So, and Joe just got a new place out in Ohio. Haven't been to it yet, but he had to upgrade his studio. So I'm excited to go back and hopefully record sometime soon at his new place.
Oh, very nice. The EP that you guys put out, what part did you play in it? Did you play any guitar on that? Any bass? Anything?
So instrument-wise, I'd say it was probably 90% me. Joe contributed a bit, and Alyssa also contributed to some key parts in there as well. I did all the guitar work, and to kind of backtrack a bit on how we kind of got started with this, her father reached out to me about last spring and said that Alyssa wanted to do music. And, I've been around the block long enough to know people say things and they don't really follow through. But I talked to her one night for about 3 hours, and she kind of gave me the lowdown of what she wanted to do. And I said, all right, cool. So she sent me some demos, and there was one particular song, Crow Song, which was my favorite on the album that we did. You want to talk about a song that kind of like melted together. I heard that demo, and I think I had all the parts in my head within like 20 seconds of how it's going to roll out. So that was the first song we did.
I believe that's the first track on the EP as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that was the track and the song that got, said, okay, like, let's do this, because I heard and I believe that she had quite a lot of great stuff going on. But again, being new to the recording and trying to go out and do your own music, it's a little challenging. And I wanted her to do it right.
Yeah. So. She has a very, very impressive voice.
Not too shabby for 22.
Very, very, very good.
I love you, Allie. Don't hate me.
Hey, something else that stuck out to me. It's a very singer-songwriter sort of record. Lot of acoustic guitar. I've always known you as an electric man, but apparently you have some acoustic skills as well.
Yes. Well, for those who are familiar with me through my music career and those who are not, I am a classically trained guitarist. I have a music degree from Columbia College. I graduated in 2013. I have a bachelor's in music composition. So we had a little bit of the classical composer kind of influence with all that. Some
I see.
Esteban, some, Hector Villalobos,
We're going to school here.
Andre Segovia. I didn't hang out with the jazz kids. They were too weird for me. But
See, I like some jazz.
I like some jazz too. A lot more gypsy jazz, but
Okay, I mean, I can see that.
Django Reinhardt over there. But the jazz guys were just like, man, jazz. I'm like, yeah, what about it? They just want to drink PBR and smoke their Pall Malls in the outfield over there at school. And I was like, I'm not about that. I need some structure. I need some Bach, some Mozart, some Brahms, all that good stuff. So, but yeah, the acoustic work, going back to that, is, I'm used to the hard rock, a little bit of the metal, but that's what I thought was interesting is I had to strip away the amps and effects, if you will, for a more reduced version of musical composition. And Allie wrote a lot of the basic chords and melodies on the songs. And she gave me her scribblings and notes and was like, make this work and sound pretty. So it took a little crafting because some things we had to do some tweaking on, and it's no discredit at all. She's a phenomenal vocalist, but she had limited guitar skill, and she is practicing and working on enhancing that. But at the time, I had to figure out some of the blank spots in the music. So a lot of that was in the studio creating and crafting the elements that we made on her album.
The arrangement of the album really stuck out to me because I listen to a lot of rock stuff. A lot of rock stuff can be very busy. You got drums, guitar, bass, probably multiple layers. But when you listen to that EP, there's a lot of space, but it does not feel empty. It's like you've got a lot accomplished musically with very minimal parts. And I really, really like that about it. I think it's a very, very clever arrangement.
Thank you. That was, I don't want to say part of the struggle, but I told Allie from the get-go that this EP is her record and, her songs. So I want her to be completely satisfied with what we were doing. And with being such too, there's no right and wrong way to do music. There's your jazz influence. And, we allowed space for the music to have its time to exist because I kept telling her, and, she also agreed and wanted to make texture with the music. So we took the basic G chord that would have probably went on for some time, and we really tried to enhance creating soundscapes to allow her voice to sit on top of the music, almost like a fine Krabby Patty. Bun, patty, cheese, lettuce, all that good stuff.
I'm so glad we snuck in a SpongeBob reference.
Yeah, of course we have to.
This early.
We have to.
Soundscape is a very, very good word to describe the sounds on that record.
Absolutely.
Another thing that stuck out to me, there's almost no drums.
We don't believe in hiring drummers in this camp over here. No, part of it, I don't want to say by design, but again, she came to me with these songs, and these were songs that she put together with the stuff that she wanted in the record. And, when you're a college kid, it's already hard enough to get some pizza and cheap beer half the time. I'm sure it's even harder to find a good drummer.
We always joke, one drummer's holding up half the music scene in the town.
That's true too. And he's like triple booked every night. Yeah. So that's the problem. But she wanted, and again, just with the conversations we had, I encouraged to just, let's make the album as it is. And what's cool is because now there is so much play within the music that we can actually add drums and other instruments live. Like we do have some live recordings, and we played Milwaukee Summerfest this last year, which was pretty cool. My first time ever being there. And, we had a drummer, 2 guitarists, keyboardist, bassist, and her. And it's amazing on how much extra sound you can fulfill by just having a bare bone structure. So
I was going to ask about that because Pete told me you guys were going to go play in Wisconsin. And whenever I listen to the record and I see pictures of the band, I notice, it looks like there's more instruments there than maybe what I'm hearing on the record. So I wondered, hey, how does that live translation work?
So It is tricky because I think, at the level that we're at right now and with the musicians that, we've worked with and just availability, a lot of trained musicians want to hear something to bounce it off of. Like, since there are no drums, I think it could be hard for drummers to insert drums.
I see. Yeah.
Where I keep encouraging them that it's okay. We built the soundscapes with just her and an acoustic guitar as the basic elements. So we added all the extra, the synth, the cellos, the piano parts, the ambiance, if you will. So especially for a live situation, I'm trying to also encourage the idea when we are working with other musicians, and particularly, drums are absent from there. There's no electric guitars either. There's a little bit here and there, but nothing like Judas Priest style, as much as I would like to have that. We're trying to encourage the creativity of, build it up and add the influence that you want. I'm always going to go more for the rock pop type of a style because you want to make an impression when you're playing live as an up-and-coming artist or a newer artist. You want your live shows to be good. You want your live shows to be impactful. You want them to call you back. So when it comes to those elements, I always say, hey, how would you want this? Or not telling drummers how to play, but adding critiques of how maybe some certain sounds in terms of accents and beats might flow within certain parts.
Kind of trying to take almost like a listener's approach. Like if you were going to put your headphones on and you're the listener, what would you imagine happening right here? Is that kind of what you're trying to say? That's how I'm interpreting it.
In essence, yes. Or in this case, because again, we made a lot of the sound in the studio and we built a lot of the, musical ideas in real time. I'm also trying to think, what would a drummer do if we had a drummer in the studio with us and he had to put a beat over this? What would the drummer kind of create on that? Could he do a rock beat? Could he do a fusion type of a beat? Could he do a Latin thing? Could he do a jazz thing? I always say simpler is better. You can AC/DC it and probably make a good career out of it. But hey, they did all right, so why couldn't we?
Yeah. Your background is much more extensive than what I knew. I had no idea you had the classical influence.
I guess Google failed you today.
Yeah, it did. It did.
Damn you, Siri.
Yeah, Google's fired.
Or Chat GPT, whatever it's called.
Yeah, Chat GPT. Tell me about Dan.
Yeah, he doesn't exist. He's not on paper. We can't find him. No record bound.
When did you get into music stuff as a kid?
So it's a collective. Over the years, there wasn't really a super definitive point where I think I just latched on and I said this was it. There was just, as you're a child growing up, you have little like sprinkles of influence of things going on. Some of the earliest things I can remember is that my grandfather played an instrument called the concertina, which is basically a giant air box, almost like a, what is it? The accordion.
Oh, okay.
It's got buttons on it. It's a really cool instrument. It's crazy as all hell to play because it's like a piano while you're squeezing it. It's just ridiculous.
You say it's a concertina?
Concertina. So he used to be like in a polka folk type band.
Oh, okay.
Back in his, and again, his later years, I don't know how far back he went. I'd have to do my research on it. But I remember going over to his house and I'd hear him dun, 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 playing the polka music on it.
That's cool.
So that was part of it. Let's see. My dad dabbled on guitar for a bit. My uncle, who is unfortunately no longer with us, but he dabbled in guitar too. So as I started to get older and get more into like music, I did, recorder in school.
Oh, I think everybody has played a recorder at some point.
The one instrument I haven't seen a professional recorder player for, but I think we're missing that somewhere. And if there is, I apologize. So,
You play some jazz recorder.
Yeah, I'm going to play some jazz recorder. Is it, Kenny G? On a recorder.
Shout out to Kenny G.
But then, just cello in school because I wanted to play the Jaws theme. And after I learned how to do that, I quit cello. Then I went to violin because I thought it'd be a little bit easier. Wanted to play drums. Mom said no, which I laugh now that every drummer I know professionally, that's all they do. They don't work a day job. They are constantly getting paid. They own trucks and houses and all they do is drum. And I'm like, man, that could have been me.
That's where I went wrong. I should have stuck with drums.
It's pretty terrible that We play guitar like everybody else. You know, dime a dozen, really. And so, yeah, I continued from there. And I'm not exactly sure influential-wise when I made that decision, but I remember I had a friend named Danny Hans. Shout out to Danny Hans, wherever you're at, dude. He was like the rough, cool skateboarder kid who also played guitar. So I'm over to his house one day after, you know, we were done shredding the sidewalks with our really bad, you know, flip-in zero decks. And he was playing like Iron Man and like Smoke on the Water. He's like, check this out. And I just remember standing and being like, well, I want to do that. And begged my parents for a guitar. They were like, no, because you've quit everything else we've kind of tried with you. And not because, you know, I don't want to say I didn't have the effort, but it's like the quick mindset. Like I try a little bit here, like a buffet, the buffet of life.
Yeah.
Try a little baseball, try a little swimming, try, you know, Boy Scouts, did all this other stuff and quit cello, quit violin. So they're like, why would we want to spend money on something you're going to quit?
You're sampling a little bit of everything, and I'll go back for seconds with the one that I like. Right.
And so I think that got the bug in me. I got a part-time job at the pool across the street, seasonal job. And I was the fry cook there. So here's me with my now trying to grow long hair, stick underneath this goofy little hat. I look like, you know, like what is that thing? Like Animal from the Muppets, wearing like almost like a Krispy Kreme hat, serving hot dogs and ice creams to kids through 2 summers. And I saved up enough money to buy my first guitar. It was a BC Rich Warlock, which is no longer around because I dismantled that thing and I don't know what we did with it. But then I continued to grow and play guitar. I actually rage quit for about a year because watching AC/DC videos and Led Zeppelin videos, I'm like, I can't do that. So I quit. And then, you know, School Rock came out around that time, I think, too, some point. And I'm watching these kids rip it on TV, which, of course, is a movie I didn't know at the time. And I'm like, everybody else is better than me. And then it's like, you know, this Jack Black guy goes into a school and, like, trains all these kids off of watching music videos and doing goofy little dance moves. And then they're on, like, a stage. So I'm like, well, I apparently just suck at this. Got back into it, and then I bought a Gibson Les Paul because I was insane at like 15 years old, and my mom thought I was crazy for dropping about $2,000.
You'd say that's not a cheap investment for a teenager.
No, $159 BC Rich to a $2,000 Black Les Paul.
That's a jump.
So that was my commitment right there because I was like, well, if I'm going to do it now, I'm going to go big or go home, man.
Yeah.
Ironically, I still have that guitar, and it's, you know, it's the baby. It's the first real guitar I think I ever got outside of the BC Rich. And, you know, my mom's like, you're going to buy a guitar over a car? Well, sorry, Mom.
Hey, priorities. Yeah.
You know, the what, 7 or 8 cars I've had in between that time period and now aren't even here anymore. So what's still around? The Les Paul.
Yeah.
Which then continued on throughout my life. And then I tried to join bands and joined, you know, when I thought I made it was like late high school, 2008, 2009. And this is some old school shout outs. So to all my old bandmates here, I joined a band called Hessler. So if you look them up, they were like a Chicago hard rock kind of like, I don't know how, like Wasp influenced type of a band.
Okay.
So got in connection with that band and, you know, did that for a little bit and things didn't work out and quit. And then around 2012 is when the band Romantic Rebel started. And that was the band that really kind of took off and really kind of propelled the rest of the music career stuff. So that's kind of a short Reader's Digest version of that.
The short Reader's Digest version.
There's a lot more into that, you know, school, influence, all that. But, you know, it's kind of how I kind of got where I'm at, I suppose.
What were some of your musical influences along this route?
Oh, boy. Well, I think like most degenerate teenagers, I liked Motley Crue for the longest time until I realized, oh, well, okay, they're all right now. You know, Poison was good at one point until, you know, same thing. Oh, well, okay, cool. We're done with that. Some of the bands that have stuck with me, though, you know, Motorhead has always been a constant influence in my life ever since I was in my skateboard days. Because my favorite skateboarder, Jeff Rowley, which I met you one time, and if you're out there listening, hopefully, I still got your signed little postcard you gave me. He was a huge Motorhead fan. So that to me was like, cool, my favorite skateboarder, and he likes this band, therefore I like this band.
Heck yeah.
And then I haven't stopped liking that band. That's my problem. Love my Judas Priest and Iron Maiden, so, you know, the British heavy metal, the Led Zeppelins. Again, my classical influences, love Mozart, Baroque period, the Bach Romantic period, you got your Beethoven. So that era of music for those couple hundred years have been always stuck with me. And I'm also a huge Lady Gaga fan. So I know there's probably haters out there and whatever, but I mean, come on. The Fame album just slams. It's such a good album.
See, this is another one I did not expect that either.
Poker Face is the best song, and I will wake up from a dead coma singing that song. It is wonderful. I love that record.
I think we should get a concertina and we should do a cover of Poker Face. We'll call it Polka Face.
I like that.
Yeah. Kendall, write that down. Concertina,
Polka Face. Ironically enough, Lady Gaga indirectly kicked me out of the studio one year, which was also a pretty fun story.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm. This is when she was recording, I think it was either Art Pop, and she was in Chicago, and we used to rehearse in the Romantic Rebel Band at a place called the CRC, Chicago Recording Company. Lots of great artists have been through there, the Pumpkins. I mean, it's a very historical venue or building. My apologies. It's actually in the same building that the original Playboy house was at.
Oh.
So it's got some cool
It's got
swag
some
or history, whatever you want to call it there. And we had a gig, and since we had a privilege to rehearse at this recording studio, I think it was on the second floor we had our equipment, and she just locked it down. I mean, she had her black Cadillac Escalade parked on the side with the black tarp going to the door. This is at the same time she was dating that one actor from Chicago who I guess left her for a nurse or something. I don't know.
I'm not up to date on my Lady Gaga trivia.
And
don't look at me like
I kept
gonna know
tabs
this.
for a bit. Trust me.
Okay.
I was just watching out what's going on with
Kendall's searching it. He's Googling it right now.
Yeah. Kendall, can we get that as a fact?
Fact check that.
Fact check that. So I was in the studio where she was, working on with the engineer, and what was cool is because there was glass all around the studio and the main console. So you had like a main room and two side rooms. We were in the side room to the left of the studio here, but you could open the curtains on the inside.
Okay.
So the curtains also helped with the sound dampening for the glass. Mm-hmm. So I went by the curtain and I just peeked through, and there she was by the console. She had her hair up, black t-shirt on, doing her thing, like listening to the record or the mix. And I remember I got really mad because she stole the mini fridge that had all the Coca-Cola in it. So I was trying to get a Coca-Cola, pack up my rig, and leave before we got caught. We successfully got everything through the freight elevator downstairs to our van in the alley without being seen. I don't know how. And as we were leaving, we were downstairs in the main lobby, which I have no idea why we were trying to show ourselves. And there's these two Russian guys who I think spoke 3 words of English watching the UFC fight, guarding one of the studio rooms. Me being the dummy that I was, tried to walk in that room, pretending like, oh, I know what I'm doing. And they're like, where are you going? And I was like, I got to go in that room. Like, no, don't. You need to turn around. And I tried. He's like, don't try. And I was like, all right, I'm walking out the door now before I end up on this, looking like the UFC guy right now that they're watching. So nothing happened. It was like just a quick, like, you guys shouldn't be here. And we left. And that was the closest I think I ever got to meeting Lady Gaga indirectly, and also her goons kicking us out. So,
damn,
it was kind of a trip. Like, well, hey, you're right there. Like, cool.
Yeah, that is wild. That's a good one to take a break on. Let's take a short break. We'll come back and we'll get back to it. All right. So while we were on break, we got confirmation. Taylor Kinney, that's who we're trying to think of. That's the Lady Gaga man.
That sounds about right. Yep.
Former Lady Gaga man.
Yeah, so he was, she had her Chicago swanky place and then her New York place. So must be nice when you can just, have multiple penthouses.
Must be nice.
Wonderful big cities and just kind of, we're going to go here today. We're going to go there.
Yeah, I'm going to take the studio today.
Yeah, I'm just going to, rent out the studio for eternity and kick these peasants out with my Russians who can't speak any English at all.
Hey, you were telling me a little bit about some of your influences, and when you mentioned Lady Gaga, that was something I did not expect. Following Motorhead, Judas Priest. I'm curious, what exists between Motorhead, Judas Priest, and Lady Gaga?
Well, like we stated
And
earlier.
classical. Then there's classical in this other area as well. We've got this weird musical triangle going on here. What all is in this area?
Well, I think there's so much to unpack there on that one. Well, quick disclosure going into this. I am since I'm a 90s kid, I'm still like a really big diehard fan of some of the pop music of that era. Your NSYNC, your Backstreet Boys, you got your Britney. Huge Spice Girls fan. I love Spice Girls.
Hey, we can do Spice Girls. Did you ever have like the little what place was it? Was it like McDonald's or someplace that had the little thing they'd give away the music, and it was a tiny little keychain gadget gizmo?
I don't remember.
I swear this was a thing.
It might have
Kendall's
been.
nodding at me.
Pocket Pops, I think they were called.
Something like that. Pocket Pops.
I think it was something like that.
To be fair, I'm a little bit older, so maybe they gave these out when I was, upgrading from Happy Meals to Big Macs.
Oh, okay.
Maybe.
Okay. I see.
But I did have the Inspector Gadget toys when those were cool. Well, you had to get all the Inspector
Yep.
Gadget parts to make that
I
guy.
do remember Inspector Gadget.
So, but that's part of the influence. I'm a sucker for a good pop song and, some of that kind of stuff. The more modern day stuff's been harder to kind of digest, especially, like some of these songs. I'm just like, I don't know what's happening anymore. Like the Pink Pony Club song's a huge thing now. I had to figure out what that was all about. It's like,
Hey, no, Chaperone has another song called "Good Luck, Babe" that I binged for like 2 weeks straight.
oh, well, then there you go. See, something I haven't been familiar with because I also don't listen to the radio anymore. I got my, I guess I'm like a boomer now. Got my music on my iPod that's connected in my car, and then I just recycle. This was a hit back in the 20s. Beep, boop, ba 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 ba. And it was, that kind of stuff I got going on now.
I like that sort of stuff.
But anyway, to go back to your question, what makes this all kind of like relevant in itself? So I think as a musician, it's your due diligence to try to be open-minded to different things. There's not a right or wrong answer. And I think growing up, I had this stigma of trying to be a guitar player that if I have to be a guitar player, I must only listen to guitar playing music. Mm-hmm. Ironically enough, I learned more about playing guitar and how to play guitar and how to do music by listening to other forms of music that may not even have guitar.
I think you can learn a lot about arrangement as well from listening to other stuff that's outside of that guitar realm.
Absolutely. And another crazy concept, this is more the composerly side, is you have to understand how other instruments operate if you're trying to convey ideas. There's like aerophones. So, your saxophones, your flutes have, eventually they stop working because you run out of breath.
Right.
You have to get the phrasing into that. So that's why if you read that type of music and you're trying to do it on guitar, sometimes the phrasing may not seem right to you or may seem off because the person who actually has to play that on the instrument it was written for eventually has to breathe.
Right.
And there's required stops in order to keep playing this music.
Right.
Piano is respectfully limited to 10 fingers. Now you can do other things to enhance it, but traditionally you have 10 fingers. There's a reason why you can play that many notes on the piano, but if you try to rearrange it for other instruments, you have to break up parts to do certain lines because you don't have enough fingers or enough parts to play that with. So that's kind of the theory thought behind it is, I got my music for the hangout time, my influences growing up, but all these artists too all have worked together with each other at some point in some respect, or they've known people who've worked with each other. And the music business is a very small business. We see like good examples like Post Malone or that Youngblood guy. Mm-hmm. It's amazing how many people that they talk to and know and they're influenced by and they're all, hanging out with and collaborate with. Lady Gaga's a huge metal fan. When I saw her in concert back in Chicago, she got pissed off at Kuma's Corner. Shout out to Kuma's Corner. That you guys took the Judas Priest burger off the menu. And I would agree with her. She'd be like, they took off the Judas Priest burger. And
Hey, they still have the Motorhead on there though.
I think they do. Or it's Motor Breath. I can't remember. But
because I think it's got olives on it.
The Mastodon burger is my favorite there.
Oh.
Or the Iron Maiden. The Iron Maiden's good.
So
too.
what a time to bring up Mastodon. Brent Hines.
That is, was, I didn't even realize I just did that. Absolutely.
I thought you did that on purpose.
No, I didn't, actually. So that was my one mistake today. I'm sorry.
You're talking about Kuma's and the Mastodon burger, and that was part of larger. Oh, we were talking about how influences of your influences kind of end up traveling back upwards towards you.
100%. Good example, even though they've had controversy over the years, is Led Zeppelin. You know, they're a band who was influenced by American blues, and then, you know, they did their thing with it and, you know, became Led Zeppelin, you know, and even referencing my Motorhead, you know, Rip Lemmy, that, you know, he was heavily influenced by all those old bands too, you know, a lot of bands from the 50s, you know, your Chuck Berry's and all that. So it's kind of crazy that here's a guy who probably drinks more than enough Jack to go around the world a million times, is so like passionate about that type of music as well and how it's influenced him. And then he, you know, maybe they don't understand the influence that they've had on people too. It's a weird thing because, you know, we look at the legends and you're like, wow, you know, they've done this, and, you know, I find influence in that, but sometimes when you do things, you don't realize that maybe you're becoming the new influence. So I think a lot of bands in that time, you know, they just, you know, I don't think Led Zeppelin went out to be like, we're going to be a great influence. They just became, you know what I mean?
I would agree with that. And to go on what you were saying, that's something I always enjoyed doing whenever I got real into music and we got internet and you can find, you know, there's more than just the local Walmart. I always loved whenever I would get into a band and I would find out who their influences were, and then I'd go check all those out. And you might get into a couple of those and you find out what their influences are, and you just kind of keep going down like this family tree of music, sort of.
100%.
Yeah. And that's how you end up with a group from 2000s that you get real into, and that gets you into a band from the 80s, and that gets you into the band from the 60s, and before you know it, you're way back.
And I would also agree. I think those are the more better projects to be a part of, or fun projects. You know, before I get into like Alyssa stuff here with this, I was in a band with some local boys back in the Chicagoland area called Perry Hutchins, and then they changed their name to the Northern Lights. But if you looked at our, you know, influences and what we cater towards in ourselves, it was similar but very different in itself. Eric, the singer, was huge Slash fan, and I love Slash, but he influenced a lot. You know, he had a lot of influence on his playing style. He also liked Blackberry Smoke and country too. So I wasn't that into the country stuff, and you know, I prefer more like the hard rock and metal type stuff. And you know, we had guys, you know, like Nate's just a guitar player's guitarist. Like, he is phenomenal, and I love Nate. He's very good with his theory, loves his jazz influences, loves his metal influences. But he looked at, I apologize if I get this wrong, but it's just my viewing of you. You know, he was in that I'm a guitar player and guitar players are my thing. Where I looked at a guitar player and I'm like, okay, cool. But I also like to look at a piano player or a violinist. I try to look outside of that guitar box. And I think that's why sometimes my playing, you know, I don't consider myself a great guitar player by any means, but I like to consider myself a composer, and the guitar is just an instrument I happen to be composing on and working on.
I was going to ask, do you consider the guitar to just be your tool? You are a musician. This is just what I use to get that music out.
100%.
Yeah.
I mean, I look at guitarists, you know, like your Yngwies and your Steve Vais and your Satrianis, and those guys just have all of that thing that I wish I had on guitar. Like, you know, I think we all do, or like an Eddie Van Halen thing. It's like, you know, they're just so good at what they do, but I don't have, I don't know, the right gear set in the mind to play guitar like that. To your point, it's my instrument that I've used for years to do that on.
Have you ever listened to much Frank Zappa?
No, I wasn't much of a big Zappa fan.
Okay. I like Zappa, and he had an interview once where he said something very similar, that he was, you know, not the best guitarist. He made more mistakes than the other people. But he did not think of himself first and foremost as a guitar player. He thought of himself as a composer. The guitar was just what he used to compose.
We have a lot in common now.
Yeah. Beyond that, I have no idea how much more you guys would have in common, but there's that.
Right.
I'm very interested in your classical background and your interest in classical music. You rattled off a few. Do Do you feel like any of that ever sneaks into your guitar playing, or is it more in the composer side of your brain?
A little bit of both, and depending. And ironically, the segue of how I mentioned before, talking about like the alley stuff and the influences. Jokingly, when we were talking, I was like, "You want a guy who drives a V8 muscle car, who likes whiskey and plays metal music to help you write and work with your songs?" I'm like, "Are you sure this is gonna happen?" She's like, "Yeah, you got it. You're good." I'm like, "All right, well, let's see where it goes." So that type of stuff, especially like in the studio atmosphere, there's a lot of little nuances on the songs that I was adding, like grace notes, little leading tones, different chordal inversions, really trying to just kind of enhance, again, that type of feel and element, particularly with those records. So depends on the situation, depends on what I'm doing, but for sure, I like to have that type of influence in my music because, again, I've worked with a lot of musicians who are just very caveman-y in their music, and I don't mean that disrespectfully to them, but they're almost refusing to learn. They're almost refusing to want to enhance and listen to other influences and reasons with music, which there's a reason why I think some of the groups I've been in over the years don't exist anymore. I think because they get stuck in a rut, and any sort of change to that idea, that growth doesn't seem like it's going to work for them. So I'm referencing the Romantic Rebel Band on that one because it seemed very hard-headed in that way.
I see.
So outside ideas were seen as a no-no.
Ah.
I'll just leave it at that.
You've mentioned theory a few times, and that you went to school for music. You enjoy music theory. You consider yourself a theory kind of person?
I do, but it's not the end-all be-all. So anybody who's listening to this or watching this, you don't have to follow all the rules, but it is nice to understand the recipe of how things can be created, especially if you are working with other professional musicians. It's nice to be able to have a relation with that. For example, Peter, with me in Ally's band. Peter, shout out to you again. That's twice now I've talked about you, so I must like you, apparently. During rehearsals and practices, I'll call out things like 1, 5, 4, 4, 6, 4, 5, 6, 5, 2.
Chord progressions?
Yeah, chord progressions, or just kind of, or, minor this, or diminish that, full diminished here, half diminished. So it's nice to, especially when we're all rehearsing, I'm not going to be like, put one finger here, one finger there. No, he's trained, he's professional. He needs somebody to relate those ideas to him.
Music theory is a language. This is a conversation I've had with people before, because I've had conversations with folks that are guitarists that don't want to learn music theory because they're afraid that, well, if I learn music theory, then it's going to change everything about the way that I play. But I've always viewed music theory as a language that you can use to describe what it is I'm doing.
I mean, language for me at times with that, because I've had this argument, it's not really so much a language, because I'm not sitting here talking to being like, oh, tonic dominant, subdominant, 4, 5, 6, 3, ha ha ha, or whatever. It's more of a coding system.
Yeah, it's a vocabulary.
It's a vocabulary. It's a tooling. It is helpful. Again, we're not sitting in a room talking like weird aliens, or like those two guys from oh God, I'm really dating myself, from Doug, those two brothers that had that weird sound effect when they walked into the room.
Oh man, I remember Doug, but I don't remember these two brothers.
I forgot the name of the brothers, but for those who are watching, you probably know who they are or remember them. But in itself, again, it's almost like a coding. It's a sequence of numbers and events that applies. It's almost like math in itself, more or less.
And I was a math nerd growing up.
So if you understand how to make your scales and how to design your chords, it's a plug-and-play system in its essence. But you have to understand the steps in order to get there. It's a recipe that you can tweak.
That's a good way to put it. It's a recipe. My favorite way I've heard somebody summarize music theory is that it is descriptive, not prescriptive. It doesn't tell you what you should do next. It describes what you did. And I think some people, that's what makes them a little scared of theory, that this thing is some big textbook that's going to tell me how I should do everything. And it's not going to ruin all your creativity.
No, there's a lot of classical composers and historical composers throughout the years who have bent the rules and have made adjustments. We don't have to follow things to a T, but it does help in understanding when you are trying to create something a little bit more. And I use the word refined lightly, so please don't be mad if I'm not calling your music refined. But in Ally's case, we're using simple chord structures, creating dissonances and resonances within the music that applying theory to certain chord functions helped me make sense of what we were doing. Because there are certain notes that were literally clashing with each other because they were almost too close together and interfering with her vocal lines. So I had to rearrange and rewrite and use theoretical practices to create some chord structures that allowed for a growing and contrasting soundscape in certain chord parts. Again, these weren't hard chords. It's G's, C's, and D's, and E minors, and A minors. But how they are coming in with the bass line has to flow with a certain thing. Otherwise, abruptly, if you remove the vocals, there were things in the studio that didn't sound right. And that's literally because you just had to flip two notes around and make it sound more fluid in that way.
Is there like an example you can think of a song where you had to do that, had to like rearrange it?
All of them. Particularly because, again, we had to put a lot of the chord structures in there. So, especially it's some of the, like Crow Song, for example, my favorite one, I guess I'll use that. There, learning like what nuances of like leading tones to go into certain note textures helped. That theory was there because we were in a key. We were working within a key signature. I had to understand what notes were acceptable, if you will.
Right.
Otherwise, you're listening to the flow of the music, and it's just like, and it didn't sound right. So applying that type of stuff helped create those melodic lines to have a bit more smoothness to them.
I actually have that EP up on the computer. We can listen to it afterwards. You can point out some stuff to me.
Oh boy, I live listening. I should have a copy of the record to give you. I'm sorry. I didn't bring it. No sign, no nothing. I'm sorry. Terrible. I'm a terrible guest. Don't have me back. I'm sorry, guys.
First time, only time.
First time, only time. Never coming back.
Next time we'll replace you with Pete.
Oh God. Pete, no. No, your interview with Pete would be about 5 minutes of talking about how he loves to play piano and then probably slamming a bunch of beers and vodkas.
It could be interesting.
So, yeah, it could be. I mean, if you want your studio to stand, Pete, no mas on the beer, sir.
Hey, so you got the electric guitar here. You previously used to play this bass here, and then you did the acoustic. You do any piano as well?
Yeah.
Did you do piano when you were in school as part of your?
We had to. It was forced.
I figured so.
Politely forced. But it was a really good tool because the piano, ironically, historically, is the last instrument to kind of be made in itself, the piano that we know today. Okay. So 88 keys, the 3 pedals, the whole shebang. Yes, you had the clavichords and harpsichords and all the other good stuff, but the piano is actually a percussive instrument by design. The little hammers hit the strings, so that's always a fun fact for people to know. So we had to learn the last instrument apparently was all-encompassing of all musical like theory, if you think about it. Like everybody had to learn piano. Vocal person, the flute person, the saxophone person, everybody had to learn piano. But it was the last instrument in like the classical series of instruments to be kind of like refined as how it is. Which is crazy to think. Like it's the last place winner and we're learning from it.
Going off of your instruments you played, how did you end up a bass player before you did the guitar? Because I always knew you as a bass player. I thought until now, I thought you recently switched to playing guitar, but you've always been a guitar player.
Yeah. So ironically, with the Romantic Rebel situation, it started off as a joke in the basement when we started. And originally, I was asked to play drums, which I'm not a good drummer or play drums at all. And I was really good on guitar, but the people creating the band wanted to have the dynamic set, so we had the singer set up. And originally, Alex in the band was doing drum work first. And again, this all started off as just a joke and just playing covers. And then things started to get more serious where Alex was like, well, I'll play guitar. And Dan, can you play bass? I was like, sure, whatever. I don't care. I'm boom, boom, boom. We're not like, what are we going to do with this? To what ended up going to be our first EP, which ended up getting us a show at the Foundation Room at the House of Blues. And then literally from there, I was blinking and I'm at festivals with like Aerosmith and Rob Zombie. We're opening up for Tesla at the House of Blues, Scott Stapp of Creed, going on tour with like Tantric. So what started off to me in my brain was like, oh, haha, you just sit here and play bass. Like us, we're just hanging out like, oh, why don't you play the kazoo? Okay. Well, now you're on tour playing kazoo for Boston or something. And it's like, that's the way it felt. Like it still never sunk in that I was doing that. So for the longest time, I was playing bass work for that because same thing. You know what? I have an opportunity to tour. I have an opportunity to go out, do music. I met a lot of great people in the business because of that. So, but I think by trade, I'd rather hit the six strings. But, you know, I did the work that needed to be done like any other job. Like, hey, and that's the way I took it.
What is your experience touring? Did you enjoy it? Did you do a lot of it?
Oh,
was it very different than what you thought it was going to be?
Well, it's a mix of both. Well, it's a mix of a lot of things, actually. I was on the road roughly for about 2 years, you know, roughly not continuous, but on for 3 weeks, off for a couple of weeks, on for a month, off for a week. You did, you know, and we were a young band just grinding it out, and we had the privilege to go out there and try it. And starting it was amazing. I mean, you know, I've just got out of college. I'm like 24 years old this time, 25. You know, I'm ready to go do it. I got no bills, no responsibilities. At the time I was living at home with my parents, and they were basically like, hey, go out there and try it. This is your time, you know, before you really have to figure out what you got to do next in life. And it was definitely a stress test. You have to sleep in a van. You get real close to the people in your band and you're basically your road crew. You learn what not to bring on the road. Anything that you value, you want to bring grandma's favorite coin with you because it's good luck and you don't want to lose it, don't bring it. I'm sorry. I've lost many good sweaters and beanies on the road. You know, but there are risks. You know, there's a couple nights where we had to be outside of the trailer because there was somebody on something walking towards us, kind of not threatening, but you got to watch each other's back out there, you know, and when you're very far away from home, you know, and the only thing you can really eat is McDonald's and Walmart, you're going in there to use a sink bath. It definitely makes you appreciate the struggle of it and the grind of it. And it was a very humbling experience, but it is not an easy thing to do. Part of the reason why I think the other band we started to get a little rough at the end there. So, you know, things will happen. You will get in people's faces that you don't want to. You don't mean it, but you know, you're almost like trapped animals in a cage at that point, especially when you're in a car for 10 hours driving one way and you got to listen to this one snore and this one complain and this one crying and this one doing Snapchat and this one over here doing selfies and this one complaining that there's no good coffee. That was me. Yeah. You know, it just starts to pile up, and unfortunately the negativity in those situations, you know, it helps when you're with the right people, but unfortunately it does kind of bring the ugly out in people too.
I can imagine that even if you're best friends, if you're side by side all day, every day, eventually I could see where you kind of rub one another.
Makes sense why bands, when they're, you know, able to do it, have their own private buses and jets and limos, you know, and why certain guys don't want to be around each other unless it's on the stage. The stage is probably the most magical part of the experience. I will admit that. Even with everything that goes on, that 30 minutes, 45 minutes, an hour you get to have on stage is magical because you see people who want to see you there. Maybe, you know, we had, again, a luxury and a privilege to have our songs pumped on the radio because we were on a management deal. So we were being played out like in, you know, all these different places across the country. So people would hear our songs on the radio, come to the show to see us play and buy merch and take pictures. And it was just a very surreal experience. Like I was even seen in a mall and a couple saw us and were like, oh my God, Romantic Rebel.
That's that guy.
That's like, yeah, they wanted pictures. I'm like, you guys want to go get ice cream? Like, you want ice cream with us? I'm like, I'm hungry, it's the only thing I really can eat today. But yeah, let's go get some ice cream. So you get those little moments too, and you're like, wow, this is cool, But unfortunately, that stuff all kind of just taxes on after a while, and people do get some egos with it. So I can keep going on. There's a lot obviously in this one, but
let's focus on the positive stuff. Do you have some favorite memories on stage or some favorite shows, favorite places you've been to?
Yeah, I mean, the one biggest one that sticks out is when Tesla picked us to open up for them at the House of Blues, and that was a sold-out show in Chicago. That one was probably my, oh my God, we made it moment. And my best friend Josh Belmont was there. Love you, Josh. I'm wearing your band shirt today, The Orchards. He was on stage with me at that, helping us like roadie and like, tech and just help get gear, because at that level, you are your own crew and management.
Yeah.
Which is miserable to have all these hats on and you got to go up there and play. But my buddy Josh was there, and he was even like, whoa, like he was like, you're here. I'm like, dude, I know. And then the curtain goes up and there's just a sea of people, and you're like, wow. I forgot what the center was up in Wisconsin, but we opened for Buck Cherry. And that was pretty crazy to see, because that was kind of like at a convention center.
Okay.
Wausau Convention Center. I'd have to look back. I got the pictures of it, and same thing too. You just get on the stage, and there's probably at least like maybe 8,000 or 9,000 people just in this venue, and you're on this little stage, and you're just like, oh my God. And some of the coolest pictures happen because of the big stages. So, playing the Rock Fest up in Wisconsin, when we were there with Aerosmith and Rob Zombie, that was really cool. So there's quite a lot. I actually have a diary of the road trips because my memory's not too good now.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, I have a little calendar too that I wrote dates on where we were that I kept. That was on like the second half of all that stuff, just because at some point, like literally, you don't know where you're at, you don't know where you're going, you don't know what time it is, you're almost absent of what the reality is of where you're at, because it just gets so daunting.
Does it all kind of start to run together after so many days?
Oh, 110%. It's terrible. Like I can be like, oh, it's Monday the 5th. And then before I know it, I blink and it's like, oh, it's Tuesday the 28th. And I'm like, what happened to the rest of the days? Mm-hmm. But just because, again, the travel, the sleep schedule, it doesn't help that you're not really eating and taking care of yourself too good either. But that's part of the grind again. A lot of bands would travel around with like little charcoal grills and stuff. They'd stop and grill. Yeah, we would just eat out of cans like a bunch of peasants again. Canned tuna, canned ravioli, uncooked, because we were savage. But you got to eat, so can opener was your best friend.
Would you do it all over again though?
I need a bus now. I mean, I'll put it this way: if the opportunity is there and it warrants it, I think I could grind it out. But I the opportunity was there with the Rebel Band, where there was a light at the end of the grind. You know what I mean? Like, you do this, you're on that next level. I'm like, cool, let's do it. If it's anybody else, just be like, hey, you want to be in a band and go do it? Like, no, sorry, you can't pay me enough. Sorry, and I don't want to make it sound like the money, but there are bills to pay. I got to eat and take care of myself. I got a young son I got to take care of and make sure he's, set up too, and buy him new shoes and stuff like that. So you got to be conscious of the risk to reward ratio. And I'm being honest. I know it sounds stupid, but I am going to be 36 in September. And Rockstar years, I'm already pushing like 60. I can't be that guy in my mid 30s, even though I probably am that guy now, who's still trying to do it. But I'm trying to be more thoughtful in where I'm going with the music stuff. Not completely disregarding it, but it's definitely more of a thought now. I'm not 24 and can drink half a bottle of Maker's Mark and not care. Now it's like I drink the wrong Corona and I'm like out for 3 days. So, and that wears too after a while. So
it does. It's a hell of a life, Dan.
Maybe.
I appreciate you coming on here and sharing it with us.
I'm only saying that because I was like, it's a hell of a life. I'm like, I think I got a lot more to go too, but no, No, it's good. And I appreciate it.
Yeah.
It's been a good time.
Appreciate you coming on, man.
Thank you for having me.
Great to get a chance to talk to you.
Absolutely.
Until next time. I don't have a fancy schmancy outing or anything like that. I'll come up with that later.